Lately, I've been finding it harder and harder to attempt to write novels. Mainly because my attention span isn't, like I say, my attention span. I don't think my attention span isn't that good. My ability to construct a story for an extremely long period of time isn't that good. From like the beginning, from the time in 2014, the beginning of 14, when, I'm sorry, 2013, where I first decided, hey, maybe I would like writing, maybe I should try that out. Into 2014, where I decided, okay, let's start writing stuff. From the get go, short stories were always my favorite format of writing, always. And they probably will be until the end of time. Um, I mainly write prose. I love prose. Because I feel like when you write prose, you have so much. For me, it's like so much more freedom. I mean, I could do it in third person, I could do it in first person. And when it comes to writing short stories, I feel like it's so much. I the things that I want to explore in a book, I feel like if I was to ever actually make like when I, because I have completed novels before, but when I finish a novel, I feel like there's five different themes going on at once. And these five different themes just kind of bounce around one another in some odd way that might come off as confusing. And that's mainly because anytime I construct a novel or a novella or something long to represent to show to a publisher, it's usually that manuscript is a combination of short stories. It's a combination of short stories that were similar enough or alike enough in some way that they formed some kind of extended narrative. But it's in that light that makes my ability to write a novel, like, I feel inept at it. And at the same time, I feel like, because my whole game plan right now is to write novels, put out novels, just attack the masses with not even what the masses want, because I really do not respect writers who fold and give into, you know, oh, well, romance is popular right now, so you have to write romance, otherwise you're never going to get it. I would rather die with, like, in my lifetime, my work never getting discovered, if I meant that after my death, decades later, my shit would be discovered and circulated. I wouldn't mind that. I wouldn't mind that one bit. Would it be cool to have my shit discovered in my lifetime? Absolutely. But it's not my biggest priority. And I feel like when it comes to novels, like, I do write novels, and I got a couple novels bouncing around. There's a few that are done. Whether they're good or not is up to the publishers to decide. People that I've shown them to, the thing is, I don't think I really know anyone directly that's like a super big reader. I know like one person, my grandmother, huge reader. The woman could finish a novel in a day, half a day. Like 500-page novels, like thick books. She could finish them like that. But other than her, there's nobody else I could really bounce my reading off of. Or my writings off of. And my whole game plan is to just get a few novels done. Novels that genres that I'm into, genres that I like, stories that I'd be interested in, reading about. And then after I'm established, fucking whatever's in my eye, after I'm established, to finally bring to fruition my desire to write strictly short stories until the day I croak. Which would be ideal. That's just it's just a matter of getting to that point. And because I love novels, believe me, I do. I do. There are some novels. My whole thing is I love the classic American novel, which is an art form I think, not even an art form, yeah, art form, which is something I think is dead. It died a long time ago. Sure, we have certain remnants of it popping up, like we have what do you call it, McCarthy's stuff, or you have like Stargirl, which was around I don't know how many years ago, but a lot of these novels that seem to be popping up now, I'm noticing, are ones from like the 90s and the 80s that people are suddenly rediscovering now. It's almost like the people who publish books are like afraid of new shit, so they're going back and they're finding like these gems that are finally gaining like cult followings, and they're reintroducing them to the public. And then it feels like now the only thing all these big publishers are interested in is, oh, what's going to be the next Hunger Games? What's going to be the next Harry Potter? What's going to be the next Twilight and all that shit? 50 Shades of Grey. And everyone is so obsessed with series. And I'm so tired of fucking series. Like, it's hard enough as it is, like, for me to keep my attention with a novel. Like, your story's got to be damn good. But then to have a whole series based around it, like the Harry Potter books. For one, I can't stand J.K. Rowling. I think she's a loudmouth, ignorant brick. Brick? Brit. Ah, can't speak. Alas, I really like the first Harry Potter novel. I also really like the first Harry Potter movie. But I don't like any of the other ones. I don't like the second book, third book. Stopped being a fan after the first one because I felt like, I don't know, I felt like everything that had to be said about the world, I don't know, philosophy-wise, was said in the first book. I thought it was the best. Like, it was just, everything that was set up, everything that was said was fine. And then once you start turning it into a series, because obviously it looks like it was, it was obviously meant to be, it was destined to be a series from the get-go. But I feel just like as the book's grown on, that it lost its zest. And it became something like completely different than what it started off with. But not in like a good character developing, story growing way. In like a, hey, I'm bored, so let's finish this fucking thing up for the paycheck sort of way. Which, J.K. Rowling is the type of writer that only does things to get paid. With any writer, I think when you read their stuff, or just, even by the look at them, I think you could tell things like that. I think 100% think that's possible. And then you have people like Stephen King, who I'm sure is probably a fantastic guy. But I feel like the enigma surrounding Stephen King is like he writes what he wants to write, but he also plays the field. And I have a big problem with writers who play the field. I have so much more respect for writers who work on what they want to craft, their craft, who do what they want to do, and then are able to find success off of that. Following Stan Lee's writing advice, write for you, and hopefully there are people in the world that are into the same shit that you're into, and that will propel you forward. And I feel so much of writing today is commercialized the right word? So much of it is just like boiled down and like put in packages and given to you at a $1.50 price. I think everything nowadays feels so soulless. The music nowadays is just all the same shit. unless you listen to, you know, unless you listen to indie music, which is even now starting to become the same because all the indie people now are just trying to emulate indie people, which I know is nothing new in music. How else, would rock have grown? But of course, you got people like Mac DeMarco and Gus Dapperton and all these yada yada yada. But then everyone's just trying to emulate their sound, so there's no unique bands coming out. And then, of course, we're in the midst of the whole, I think we're slowly coming out of the whole rapper decade. Just seems to be like 2000 to, or maybe 2009. Yeah, I'm gonna see 2009 to 2019. I don't know. Basically, we come out of this. We're coming out of this decade of rappers and stage performers that are they just create the same pop rap music it's getting stale. And on that subject, I really can't stand everything everyone's been talking about with in regards to celebrities and movie actors and actors and musicians and all that spreading opinions about their politics. Because in my personal opinion, people shouldn't look at a actor, for example. Let's go with the actors, for example, because there's 100 fucking things on my mind right now. Let's look at actors for an example. An actor gets up on a podium and says, whatever about fucking whatever. They receive an award and then they go up and they say, I support this, I support that, whatever. I think that's fine. What I find stupid is when they'll use, and especially in today's day of social media, where an actor or a musician or somebody will use politics or certain opinions on politics to wave and persuade people's opinions about them. Or, they'll say, oh, I hate this person, or I disassociate with this group in order to get in good with a certain group of people. And that happened a lot in the last few years with all these actors, suddenly I'm gay, or suddenly I'm, I support this. I didn't talk about this at all for as long as I've been in the business, but now that it's popular to like this thing, now I like it, and I support this now all of a sudden. It's obviously fake, but the thing is that I think people in institutions, no matter what organization you're in, whether it's religion or you're in a political party or you're in some kind of sexuality group or whatever the fuck, everyone is always clinging to, they're not even people of power, just people of popularity. It's like the same thing Scientology does. A Tom Cruise says, "Oh my God, I love gays," then suddenly the LGBTQ community is all of a sudden just on his dick. Or if the Democrats, if fucking Robert De Niro walks down the street and he's like, "Oh, I love Democrats," and Democrats, now cater to his every whim. Or Fox News says something, or an anchor on Fox News says something, and all of a sudden every Republican is just, throbbing at the mouth oh my God, they so get me. And a lot of that's been, I notice, been happening with social media. I've noticed a fuck ton in the last few years, ever since Trump got elected, that people have never, a nation of people who have pretty much taught themselves to never trust what the news says, I have noticed put more faith in the news in the last 4 or 5 years than ever before. which was scary to me because these were a group of people turning on their convictions in favor of doing something they said they would never do. There are all these people, I'm not going to mention them by name, but it was just this whole, it's about 100 people. And there was definitely more, because there's definitely more than there's definitely more than 100 types of this individual living in America. Where it's someone who's like, I don't trust the news, I don't like the news, we shouldn't watch the news is just depressing, which it is. But what pisses me off is neither side of any political agenda or party or whatever is right. Like, neither side, both sides are just trying to cut the throat of the other and grasping for straws every time one of the other is wrong. Like, I remember the Republicans' whole thing is every time somebody posted something about them, whether it was actually fake or whether it was something that was true but made them look bad, the big thing was fake news. It's fake news this, fake news that. And suddenly it became less about what was true and what was false and more about, that makes me angry, that's an actual fact, but it makes me look like a bad guy, so therefore fake news, and everyone's rallying. And then, of course, on the other side of that, there's no greater cause than a cause with a slogan. And I think once you have a slogan, it kind of flips a switch in really stupid people's minds that makes them think because the cause they're following has a slogan or a motto, that cause is ever more righteous, which is ridiculous. And groups would do that all the time. Like, I know with people who are against Trump, and they I forget what the fucking thing is. They call them like Brumpf or Drumpf or some shit like that. And you walk down the street and everyone's ha 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 Drumpf, ha ha, oh my god, hilarious. It's like, yeah, that's really inventive. Although, from the outside looking in, it seems more like name calling and not actually any constructive attempt to disprove what he's doing as bad. And you're not convincing me of anything. From the outside looking in, you're just literally, it's like the equivalent of someone walking down the street, walking up to someone they like, calling them a poopy head, and then walking away like, yeah, I'm right, I was right in that. And I noticed a very big thing with the news in the last few years is there has seemed to be this whole issue with the media making the word millennial out to be associated with the Liberal Party. And I noticed this many times, like whenever I was at a social setting, especially with older people, because if there's one thing the news tells older people to hate, it's younger people. They've been doing that since the dawn of news. But you'll be out at a place. I was at a couple places, many places, and before I even open my mouth, an older person will look at me and go, "Okay, he's young. Okay, millennial. What does millennial equal? Liberal." And they automatically assume I'm a liberal. They don't talk to me. They don't ask what I am. They don't, nothing. It's just, oh, young person, millennial. News taught me millennial equals liberal. So therefore, they already automatically assume everything about you, which is completely aggravating, especially when it's your own extended family that does this. Quite aggravating. But that just seems to be the thing. And mind you, this is from a whole group of people, a generation of people who said, you know what? We know what it's like for when, like, the older generations are turned on the young. So we're not going to do that. We're not going to listen to the news. We're not going to give in to whenever they, spew some bullshit. And then all of a sudden, Trump gets elected president, and, And what's funny is what's funny about it is, everyone likes to blame, like the Democrats blame, the left, the left does this and that, and they separate the country. And then the left goes, well, Donald Trump separated the country. The only people that separated the country are the people. It's the people who watch the news and choose to believe whether, it's the old people that watch the news and choose to believe whether their grandchildren are, politically on their side or not. It's the kids who watch, who are on the internet all day and choose to constructively talk to their parents, grandparents, and family members on whether or not, like, hey, how the news is saying what I'm like isn't what I'm like. This is what I'm like. But a big thing is, like, nobody really wants to hear that. No one really gives a shit about anything until it reaches a boiling point, which has been the biggest problem in the last 4 years. Just because everyone keeps talking, it's the end of time, it's the end of the world, end of times. And I gotta say, I'm like nowhere near that. I don't think we're any closer to destroying each other than we were when we were on the brink of nuclear war. I truly believe the world is going to end when everyone is finally content with how things are. When all the worrywarts and all the hypochondriacs of the world finally breathe a sigh of relief, that's when everything's going to end. Because that's going to be the moment in time in which we stop checking ourselves, in which we stop evaluating ourselves as a society. And that's going to be when we finally decide, what, everything's fine. I'm contented with how things are. The whole reason I think there's hope for us now is because there still are plenty of us out there that look at the world and go, okay, this is a fucked up pile of shit. But it's our fucked up pile of shit. And you're able to live on with that. You're able to, get past that. Unfortunately, plenty of people are contented with the way things are. Plenty of people, and so many, and I've been noticing this too as the years have gone on, so much more I've been noticing that people really can't think for themselves. Or at least a lot of times people don't like to think for themselves. Because a lot of people find life, too difficult or too this or too that. Which also, in my opinion, is just a result of the way people are raised, the society in which they're raised. And I think that there are so many different factors that play into, how the media and politics and all this other shit affects the masses, that I think as long as there are just a few people, even if it's a few thousand worldwide, that are aware of, how things are, not how things are, not what's really going on, but just that things aren't as bad as they could be, then I think we're okay for the time being. I'm 90% sure it's definitely inevitable that as a species we are going to be gone one day. What's going to make us go away, whether it's going to be an outside force or an internal force, is lost on me, I think. Lost on me. I wonder if I used that correctly. But in a lot of ways, I definitely think that if we're going to get destroyed, it's definitely going to be internally. Like I said, it's going to be something having to do with our civilization. Something we are going to destroy ourselves. Only because I don't really see aliens landing any day soon. I definitely do believe in aliens, but at the same time, I also believe that they are so incredibly far out in space that there is no way they'll get here anytime soon. At least not in my lifetime or my children's lifetime. I'm drawing a blank. But it's funny, people go out and or staying with their family or whatever, and they'll watch something like Ferris Bueller's Day Off, and they'll see Ferris Bueller give a speech about individuality and how people shouldn't believe in isms; they should believe in their own individuality. Don't believe in others; just believe in you. And it's just people watch that and people look at the screen and nod and go, yeah, yeah, definitely. And then they'll leave the room and they'll go and they'll idolize the same shit they were idolizing the day before. I mean, obviously we need idols in life. I try to actively attempt not to have idols because I think it fucks with your ability to realistically measure yourself up against, if you're constantly aspiring to the likes of a monolith and you're a pebble, I think it could definitely ruin you when reality comes for a check-in. But I find it very odd how whenever we absorb like media and stuff like that, popular media at least, like the stuff that, it's no secret that there are a lot of things in media that get pushed more than others. Like the news. Why is it that on the news it's nothing but depressing things? It's nothing but horrible shit day in and day out. It's just the absolute most fucked up shit. And then all the good things come once in a while. And they're usually something very minuscule. Like a kid doesn't get their, lemonade stand revoked by some asshole cops. Or a dog learns how to ride a scooter or a skateboard or some shit like that. And that's because, I do honestly believe there is an algorithm for the news. Because what you have to realize is there are still people who come home from a 9-to-5 job, sit on the couch with a beer after having dinner, and watch the 6 o'clock news, and that's their life. That's how they keep up with the world. Unfortunately, the news knows, or the media people around the media know, that these are people who make the world run. These are people who they need to stay in the positions they're in order for society to function. And the problem that's happening is too many young people are realizing that we've been gypped on the deal from the beginning. That the world doesn't have to be the way it is now. And they're trying their damnedest to fight against an unstoppable current. A seemingly unstoppable current. And what's funny about the elections now, I think, is that the elections are becoming less of a this group wants to propel our society forward and this group wants to hold us back. And I think it's becoming more of a fight, more than ever now, of a fight of the young versus the old. I think we're facing a repeat of the 60s and 70s, in which it was the people who wanted things done the new way, or a new way, versus the people who wanted things done traditionally. And at the end of that, there certainly were some changes when the world finally stepped out of that whole decade or two. And I think the same thing's going to happen again. Because history is bound to repeat itself. We're 100%, I believe, we're creatures of habit. So, I definitely think that as, I want to say pathetic, but it's not like 100% pathetic, as introverted and anxiety ridden as most of the young people today are, I think that might be, if not a genetic fuck up, then possibly just a way of establishing themselves apart from a society that just isn't working out for them. They've seen the blueprints, they don't like it. What else is there to do but rebel against it? And also, I think, like I said, it's the same thing. It's just going to be the same thing what happened in the 60s. Where all these people, they didn't want war. They didn't want this, that, and the other thing. To why can't we just, sit out in fields all day, smoke weed, and have sex, and listen to music? And while I believe the resurgence of that type of atmosphere is never going to be as strong again, I believe as the future continues, youth is definitely going to try and propel that enigma forward. It's going to take different forms. Young people are constantly going to fight back against the system in large thralls in any way they can. And like I said, it's going to change. And I don't believe there's any real way to predict how it's going to happen. I mean, years ago, in the 60s, it was people, not going to work, protesting war, the hippie generation. And nowadays, it's people, introverts, keeping to themselves, keeping in contact with others through technology, because we have that now. I do honestly believe that if we did not have computers, we would probably have something similar nowadays. Something very similar to what happened in the 60s. We'd be meeting up and we'd be doing things in public and shit like that. But because we have computers, the youth of today who wants to rebel against the traditional system, that's why they're more introverted. Because we realize that we don't have to go out on the streets and do our thing. We can sit in the comfort of our homes and do it. And at the same time, I think that kind of hurts the morale of the group. Only because if people see a group of people standing out somewhere, it seems more official than a group of people who are never seen. Who are just, heard about in the real world in whispers and in small little, who are just mentioned in like chat rooms every now and again. And I find that interesting. Like, I haven't figured that out until recently. But we're just facing a repeat of what happened before. And this is probably, if we end up surviving this for the next 100 years, we're definitely going to have similar shit like this happen again and again. And the form of protest I think young people are going to take against the system. I hate calling it the system. Because it's like I try to talk about these things, but I'm trying to not sound like some fucking cave-dwelling conspiracy theorist. Because all the things I'm talking about are like blatantly realistic. You could see them. But I find shit like that pretty interesting. But yeah, tell me what you think in the comments section below. Tell me if you enjoyed this or if you think I'm just rambling. So, I thank you for joining me. Adios.